YouTubers, this is Joe from ArtAlienTV. Another quick game of interplanetary I Spy going on here for all you space detectives out there. Whether the Pareidolia police will attack me for this one, who knows. They seem to be getting a little bit quieter now than they used to be. I don't get quite so heavily trolled as I used to maybe a couple of years ago. And today, well, basically today we're looking at this image. Now this is really recent. This is from Sol 2235 and was literally only sent down a few days ago. So yeah, it's the 19th there, 19th to the 11th, 2018. There's the number. Okay, so this is a genuine Mars image. And we have this image here. Now this image set is only a partial set. In fact, I'll show you it quickly now. There's only a few colour images here and quite a few black and white ones, but not many. I'm hoping that we'll get an update with this in the next few days and possibly have some more to go with this, which often happens. They often put stuff on the site and then a few days later more will appear. So I'm hoping there'll be some more conjoining images to this so I can join them together and look at the area in a bit more detail, because this one's interesting. And when you first look at it, you think, okay, right, it's a load of pebbles. It's quite dark, the sand here. That's probably not its real colour. The orange filter has made it go this kind of weird colour. It's probably a bit bluer than that. And we have this very light reflective object. Now, one tip for looking at Mars images, if you see something bright and reflective, always check it out, because it may be something interesting, especially if it's way, way brighter than the surrounding material, because that often denotes something that is made of a different type of mineral or a different type of rock, or even a metallic object, or possibly an intelligently made object, or some kind of melted object that's been vitrified in the blast or whatever. And that's what I initially thought this was until I looked at it a bit closer. This is interesting. Now I've got it up here in my graphics program, and I haven't done anything to this apart from enlarge the image. Now all that does is it means that I can zoom in without it pixelating too much. So let's have a look at it. Now, initially it's very bright and hard to look at. So the thing to do is to darken it quite a lot. That's minus 50 brightness there, and a bit of minus contrast as well, because this is very reflective and much brighter than surroundings. In fact, it looks like the camera's struggled to capture the detail here slightly, because it's that much brighter than the surrounding material. Now, I don't know if any of you are into photography, but when you do that, when you have a very bright object on a very dark background, often it suffers from glare, and this seems to be quite reflective as well. But all you got to do is darken it quite a lot, like I've just showed you, and you can see there's something going on here. And before I do anything to it, I can see a limb here. I'm just going to draw around it here, okay? This looks like some kind of foot or limb. That goes to there, okay? You don't see a great deal of detail here because it's a bit blurry. Now, why this is such a poor quality image when it's so close to the rover, I really don't know. There's no excuse for it. It looks like it's been downgraded quite a bit, but it's not terrible. But I think it's mainly due to the brightness of it, I think, that's hiding detail. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to sharpen some of it crudely. Then I'm going to show you the enhancements I've done. I've really darkened it up and pushed the contrast with this. Now, what this looks like to me, now I could be wrong here, so you may need to help me with this, guys. So leave a comment below if you think it's something else. I don't know what this is, but what it looks like is a fossil of some kind of creature that's kind of curled round and distorted and squashed and fossilized and broken, and we have a limb here, and we have a possible skull here. This could be an eye socket here, don't know. This could be a hip bone or something that's broken. I don't know what it is. The problem is when you're looking at Mars specimens, the bones may not actually match up to exactly to bones that we have on mammals or lizards or whatever on Earth. They may be quite different. They may be much thinner. They may be much smaller. This is only this whole thing itself is probably only about 5 or 6 inches across. When you look at the whole image, it looks quite large, but it's not really. I'm just zooming into it. That it may be about 8 inches, but not a lot more than that. It's not that big. And there's another part to it here and down here. If we look down here, this looks like a small skull. If I sharpen that up a bit, you can see what look like teeth here and like a jawbone coming round. But it's all smashed. It's very hard to tell what you're looking at. Now, here's the raw image, and I'll flick through the enhancements. So what I did, I basically clipped it, darkened it some more, and added contrast to bring out some of these darker details, and then darkened it again, because this thing is very bright, and it may be some kind of calcium here, or bone-like material. It almost looks like it's melted, but sometimes fossils do look like they're melted because they get crushed under lots of sediment, and what may have happened here is the sediment may have blown away and eroded, leaving the bone material behind, or this may have been crushed. There is a rock here, you can see that darker object there, that's kind of landed there or ended up there. This may have been underwater and squashed under lots of sediment, which is then eroded away, or it could have just been led there and freeze-dried and kind of broken down over thousands of years. Don't know how old this is, absolutely no idea. But you can see more clearly now, because I've darkened it a bit more and I've taken my time with it and darkened it really carefully. You can see this limb here with a foot-shaped structure to it with 2 or 3 toes on it here, 1, 2, and maybe 3. Okay, so yeah, what we have here, I'll go from left to right. We've got this thing here with a part to it inside and a part coming down here. We have this rather interesting circular, almost eye-looking object. I'm not saying it's an eye, but it's got an internal part to it there. It's got a hole there with a sort of almost like a ring shape, like a ring coming round. Okay, that's weird. And then we've got the limb, which is the most obvious part. I'll do that in white actually, so you can see that a bit better. It comes right up here, and it sort of joins onto that bit, and it may actually carry on up here, but it's gone a bit vague there. Okay, or broken. And then it comes along here. We got what looks like a joint here, almost like an ankle joint here. Okay, and it comes along. We got what seem to be digits there, at least 3 of them. 1, 2, and 3. Okay, 1 there, 1 there, and 1 there, and what looks like a toe there, and some toe bones in here. So there's some detail in there. Okay. Once you know it's there, you can see it. But initially it's hard to see because the image is not great quality, as usual, and you've really got to darken the hell out of it, especially with this one, to actually see what's going on. But if you look carefully up here, now this is the bit that drew my attention here. The shape of this, how it comes round like that and goes in. And you've got almost like a chin-shaped thing. Now I'm not saying it is a chin, and then it sort of comes round like that. This kind of reminded me of a face, but it's probably not. What I think this is a skull that's been crushed, and what we have here at the top, let's get rid of those, is a jawbone here. This looks a bit like a jawbone. I'm not saying it is. I couldn't prove it either way, but we have interlocking parts here, and some very, very vague, pointed, jagged parts here, like a small teeth. And obviously this comes right round and comes right back to here, and then this sort of comes to here like that. So what we may be looking at is some kind of small dinosaur or a small mammal, or I would say some kind of reptile actually, because if that is a foot, it only has 3 what look like 3 digits here, 1, 2, and 3. Okay. Now mammals don't have 3 digits generally, not on Earth anyway. But this part up here was interesting, and it kind of looks like some sort of jawbone or something, but it comes out into this bit and joins to this bit here, which comes out like that and goes like that. Really interesting, okay? And then, yeah, I mean, what is it? I mean, this almost looks like a dead, some kind of dead lizard, and there may still be some mummified fleshy material here, which we're seeing, and possibly even remains of another. If this was a female lizard or a creature, there may even be remains of another creature inside, which is often the case. Well, not often the case, but it has been the case with some fossils, like this one. Here we have a fossil found recently of a small horse-like creature. I think it was found in Germany, and it has the remains of a baby inside, a foal with small little bones in there. Okay. Yeah, Germany. This was a 48 million year old fossil. Now, I'll put a link below to this. You can check out that. I'll let you read up on that if you're interested. That was quite interesting. And I'll see if I can find one or two other examples of similar looking things. Now, as is often the case with fossils like this, you get bones kind of broken and kind of not necessarily laid out in a neat pattern. Like this is fairly neatly laid out and fairly obvious what you're looking at. But often animals kind of don't always die in a neat kind of death posture like that. And often the limbs are kind of contorted or broken or torn off. And especially if there's been some kind of cataclysm, you'll get limbs missing, you'll get whole parts of the body missing. And as is often the case on Mars, there's rarely any sort of body at all. You often just get a skull or a head on its own, which is rather interesting. But there were obviously predators on Mars, which may have been going around feeding on these bones and dragging the bodies off and eating them, which is why we don't find bodies. As well as the fact that the mummified specimens I've found, many of the bodies may be just buried below in the sand, and the sand hasn't quite blown away enough yet for us to see them. So that's also another possibility. And it did also remind me of this thing which I published recently. A lot of you may have seen this. This is only meters away from where we are now, literally, not very far, probably only about 2 or 3 meters away. And this is a very, very large squashed, what looks like a very large squashed skull of a humanoid. It's a bit distorted. The eye sockets aren't symmetrical, but they wouldn't be if it had been squashed. And the left side of the skull here is also squashed out a bit. So it's extended on that side. But you can see where the nose would have been there, 2 eye sockets, and the rover even drilled right into the forehead just there. I would have taken a sample of that and should know by now how much calcium and bony-like minerals are left in this fossil. So that was interesting. There's a scale skull next to it as a standard human skull there to scale. Our skulls are actually quite small on average, but this thing is massive. So check that out if you haven't seen it already. That's a video called NASA Drilled Something Incredible. That was what I've released a few weeks ago. That's worth checking out. So there we have it, really. What I'll do is I'll show you the other bits here. I'm really hoping that we get some more images in this set, or perhaps some more images of this in the next few days. So I may do an update on this, a very quick update, because I would like to see more of what's going on here, because this is interesting. We've got a limb, we've got some other possible jaw-like structures up here, coming around like that, which I showed you a minute ago. We've got some interesting stuff going on here, which is kind of joined to here, and there's something going on here as well. I can't really make out what it is, but that's interesting to me. And this kind of ring-shaped thing here with a hole in it is interesting. Unfortunately, we've got a rock just right there in the middle of it, and a lot of it's quite vague. But what I'll do some more enhancements of this, and I'll kind of try and highlight what I'm seeing a bit more, because it's not a great quality image to work with. And obviously, if this was on Earth, we'd have used a very high-res camera to take photographs and then studied them and enhanced them and enhanced the contrast that way on a really high-res 26 or 30 plus megapixel image rather than like a 1 megapixel low res image like we have here. So there we are. I mean, it was interesting, and it was the limb really that to me suggested that this could be some kind of creature. I don't know what it is, but judging by the other creatures found in this area, it could be almost anything. So if we go back to this video, I showed another skull as well as this one that was right near the rover, which is here. This was found by Neville Thompson of UFA, the godfather of the gigapans, and he found what looks like a human skull here, which is crushed. So they're often in not a very good shape, these skulls and specimens, and the bones are often squashed and broken, as we have here. And this is quite, it's a really nice diagram actually. He's pointed out the different parts here. You've got the maxilla and the jawbone and stuff like that. And what we have here is the upper maxilla is moved here, and we've got it there. You can see teeth in there. So check out my video with that in, because that goes into more detail. And I did some enhancements of this as well, and really brightened it up for you, and you can see the teeth quite clearly. So that's definitely, it really does look pretty, I would say 98% sure that is a skull. And we've even got scale here because it's right next to the rover wheel, which gives us really good scale. The rover wheels are 20 inches wide. So this is almost half that. That's about 9 inches, 8 or 9 inches. So it's large, but it's not massive, unlike some of the other ones I've shown. And there's something else I found the other day, which I posted on Facebook as well. I'll show you that quickly because that was interesting. I don't think this is a fossil. Where is it? Over here. This, I think, may be an actual carving. I've called it Mars the Dog of War. It's a bit of a play on words, obviously. Instead of the God of War. Yeah, very clever. And we have what looks like some kind of creature, a bit like a dog or something, with teeth there at the front. You've got a puggish-like nose, got an eye here. This looks like a carving. And there are other carvings of animals in the area, including cats, dogs, and apes, and humanoids, and all sorts of things, as I've shown before. I will put links at the end of this video for any relevant stuff. I'll add a few playlist links for you so you can check out, if you haven't seen them before. There are hundreds of things like this on Mars, including mummified specimens, skulls, bones, carved animals, statues, and all manner of things, including technical things like manufactured objects lying around, buildings, everything. Okay, so if you're new to this channel, suspend your disbelief until you've actually seen some of the images, because there's loads and loads more to go with this. These are not one-off things. This is one of hundreds of similar items. Okay, and even in the raw image here, you can see that. Let me get the folder up. Let me get the folder up here because it's better to see it here, because we can zoom in. Now, I haven't added this detail. This detail's here. When you actually play with the contrast on this, you can see that eye just there. If you let your eyes adjust, see that eye detail? There's a crack here. You can see the points of the teeth here and nose detail here. Not a hell of a lot of detail here, but it's there. And if you play around the contrast, that will come out. You'll be able to see that. It's not difficult to do. Even the most basic graphics software will help you do that. Okay. That was from Sol 1402. That's something I found last night. There's a whole load of stuff here. There was this I found the other day, which I haven't shown anyone yet. I've been saving this one. It looks like a gravestone or grave marker here. And you can see, especially when you go back a bit, you can see that semicircular or circular pattern in it. And I've darkened it right up. I've color corrected it, darkened it, and then you can see that there. That isn't just a random rock, and it's sticking up as well. So this looks like some kind of gravestone or something, a tombstone or grave marker. So there's evidence of life all over the place once you tune yourself into it. But the images are a little bit difficult to get your head around because they're not great quality. There's another thing here. This looks like a statue. I've christened this guy Mr. Green Chin for obvious reasons, because when you, even in the raw image, it's got a green coloured chin and doesn't look very happy about it. It's quite comical, really. And got some kind of strange hat or helmet on. Not a great quality image, but this is quite large. I would say this is probably about 8 inches, 8 to 12 inches from here to here. It's probably about 10. They've got a rim of a helmet or hat going back like that. Some very crude details here, but quite a clear mouth and chin, and a little nose and 2 eyes. This looks like a little creature with a couple of eyes there, and you've got teeth here, with sort of horns on the top. I'm not really sure what it is. It's very odd. Got an ear there. Really odd, that one. I've no idea what sort of creature it is. It could be some kind of ape, it could be some kind of other reptilian kind of thing. I don't know. No idea. Doesn't match anything I've ever seen before. So some of these things do look kind of familiar, but some of them are very different. So the problem is when you're looking at, I mean, this thing, I thought is this one I published the other day. It was very obvious what it is. Some kind of dinosauroid or something. It looks like some kind of raptor. This is about 18 inches long, possibly 2 feet. Doesn't look that big here, but it is. This could have bitten your head off, this thing. So the remains of any creatures that may have died in Gale Crater as they drank the last remains of any water that was left behind may have been eating each other and fighting over it and fighting over food and stuff, which may explain why there's very few bones lying around. I would expect to see a lot more in such an area, but the heads kind of, I think, get left behind because they're not really edible. Whereas the sort of limbs you can just drag off and break up and eat and stuff, you know. So that may explain why we're not seeing more skeleton and skeletal remains. But this looks like a squashed skeleton with perhaps some fleshy material kind of fossilized together and kind of mangled up. I really don't know what it is, but it suggests to me, looking at this these toes here, that it's only got 3 toes. So it would be some kind of reptilian or bird, perhaps. Who knows? But either. I'll put some more clips of that in a few seconds for you, and I'll try and drag out some more detail from this. It's going to be difficult, but I'll do it anyway. Thanks for watching, everybody. Please like and subscribe if you haven't already. I will see you soon.